In June this year, I went to 2 Ruby conferences in Europe and I hung out with some very smart engineers in the Ruby community. And as we were chatting, I thought, hey, it would be cool if I make a compilation video and ask everybody what they thought about project failure. And I wanted to know what were their project failures and also how do software projects usually fail if they fail. My name is Till Carlos and I document how we build software projects on this YouTube channel. And today we're going to talk about project failures.
Do too much complexity out of the gate, then you end up with a failed project because then you have to redo all that, or you don't have any revenue. Why do you have so many servers?
Premature complexity or even premature abstraction is something I'm going to talk about later this week on my channel. If you want to subscribe now, you're going to see it in the next days. I want to talk about how people can fail, how developers can make the mistake of too early building too many abstractions. What she said here, too much optimization, too many servers without revenue. Definitely something where companies fail, software projects fail.
Most of the things I've seen being failing was because of improper planning or not adhering to agile guidelines. So either you do planning or you do agile, but you can't do both of it and then think to succeed.
That's interesting. Either or. If you run a planned project, then agile doesn't make a lot of sense. And if you already run agile, then it's very hard to plan longer than the current sprint. And you might try it, but it might still not work. And what he says is if people don't want to do any of those, so they're basically in the limbo in between where you haven't done any planning, but then also you don't want to do this iteration. So basically you're moving a huge mountain of work in front of you and it gets harder and harder to show stuff or to make a demo for the stakeholder. Definitely something I've seen a couple of times, something we should all look out for.
The reason it has not become the success that we probably wanted it to be is because we were just 2 coders having very similar experiences, very similar interests as well, and so we are definitely missing some sort of, I don't know, businessy person or someone with a more coming from a more design perspective and so on. And I think the succeeding projects, even in open source, are always those where the different perspectives come together. And
I think Jan is talking about his lifestyle business, Depfu, which grew and it makes money, and it didn't become like a unicorn or like a multi-million-dollar business. However, it is also a tool for developers. And I think here what happened is that just GitHub released something that's very similar to their functionality, but still is a great software that they built. I don't know. I'm not sure if that's exactly true in this case, if I recall the story correctly. However, it's totally true. If there's no businessy person, nobody really needs to push and make money with something, yeah, then developers just play around and they just build something that they think is cool. And that's a huge fallacy. And this is also partly why I do this YouTube channel, because I want to get out of just building products. I want to show more stuff. And this is my way of doing this. And maybe he gives a lot of talks, so maybe he found an outlet for that. But having another marketer in the team, it's probably not a bad investment in this case here.
Well, the biggest cost of failures are all my spare projects that I started. It's hey, that's a very nice idea, let's get it started, without launching them. So it basically costs a lot of time and then also some kind of money.
Do you have an example?
I built an own boilerplate for Rails, which to ramp up Rails projects, which I'm not using right now. I started to create different websites. Right now I'm starting a blog, AI on Rails. I don't know. I hope that this is not gonna get a failed project, but it's about time. It's about dedication or the discipline, the continuity to keep on going.
What's the URL?
AIonRails.com.
So Henning is actually an old employee of mine back in the days. He's amazing. He's smart, and what he does is it really always works and it's very pretty. Let's see if he publishes AI on Rails. I just sent him a message to nudge him a bit.
My personal side project essentially got nowhere, so you could totally call it a total failure for like many reasons. So time span, effort, brain capacity, whatever. So I mean, that's the one side view, and the other side is like it still got me somehow like a bit further along my journey.
Sebastian, yes, it's true that the product itself were not successful, but I think it's a massive understatement because he made this one thing that got picked up by HashiCorp, and he got a job through like a weekend project. So yeah, I wouldn't even call this a failure, but yeah, of course, if you don't release stuff, if you don't publish it, if you just work for something and in order to have fun developing, then I don't even know if I would call it a failure, to be honest, because the parameter which you start a project to learn something, to code something cool, it doesn't always need to make money. Not everything is a real business. It can also just be a hobby or just an attempt. And the next person, the last person is going to talk about this. Let's wait a bit.
At one of my previous jobs, we implemented a what you see, what you get editor. And we took this editor and we wanted to be smart. And in our database, what we were storing was the internal JSON structure of this editor. Like this is like this new modern immutable structure editors. And we were, oh, this will be very fast to just put this in the JSON in the database. That's great. The front end will just load that and it works perfectly. The moment they change their JSON structure, all hell break loose. Then we fix the JSON structure, they do it again. And then we needed again to basically move into like, okay, this editor have this intermediate format, which is like HTML, which is a great intermediate format, and just store that into the database. But this took us like months of like, okay, we shouldn't not have the internals of our editors spit out into a database model. So this, when you tell me about failure, this is something I remember very vaguely.
Yeah, that can happen if you rely on third-party packages, that you include them. If they wanted to store the internal structure of something that someone else made, of course they don't have the control over that. Of course, someone else might be able to change it, and just they need to do so in order to innovate and advance with their project. This is a typical dependency problem. It's a more technical failure. Yeah, I mean, eventually they figured it out, but it probably cost them a couple of months of head scratching.
No, like I already ship bugs, but generally I do small things and then I double check if everyone are we going into the right direction. And generally, the whole project never failed because we discovered earlier. But for sure, I already committed like small mistakes. But I feel like a good way to avoid that is always keep double checking with baby steps.
This is so beautiful because this is exactly the kind of engineer you want to have on a highly scaling SaaS software, because his values are software quality and getting things right. And I interviewed him for like 10 minutes and it was immediately clear that he is a really good, really thoughtful engineer who just makes stuff that usually doesn't break. And yeah, of course, if you have a highly scaling SaaS, you cannot have stuff happen to it. Like, not one person should compromise the whole system. There should always be a team that double checks stuff, not that like something like CloudStrike is happening that was just coming up like 3 days ago or so now as I make this video. But yeah, if you have the right team set up, a failure should not even happen as people double check each other. So this is really good. Okay, now let's get to Steven. He says something interesting about what is actually a failure.
Every situation is an opportunity to like learn something. So if something quote unquote doesn't go right, that's just the scientific method. That's like, I had a hypothesis, that hypothesis happened to be wrong, but I learned what is true, and from learning what's true, I'm able to tweak my next hypothesis and get closer to matching my expectations with reality. But reality doesn't change, it's just whether or not I had a correct hypothesis.
Main ingredient to have this kind of mindset is iterate fast and have low expectation. You're thinking you're building something huge and it's going to be the best thing ever. Expectations are so big that some people don't even want to admit that they produced a failure and that they need to move on. So this is a really good mindset. I should talk with him more. He's a good engineer. Now, I also talked about software project success, and I asked the same people the same question about their successful projects, which you can watch over here.